The Democrats are attempting to move the goalposts back onto the field, but the field is muddy and it's unclear whether they realize which game is going to be played.
Well, let me just say that we do have a little jail down in the basement of the Capitol. But if we were arresting all of the people in the administration, we would have overcrowded jail situation, and I'm not for that.
And I would go so far to say, then you move to impeach him. And you do the same thing to anyone else who doesn't want to follow the law.
We should all now just accept that the party of cognitive dissonance and hypocrisy first and foremost represents the Constitution. Yes, that's what I said.
Collision is the definition of a constitutional crisis.
One branch saying we are not going to respect the authority of a co-equal branch, that puts us in a very, very dangerous position.
No one is above the law, including the President of the United States. And it reminds us that we fought our independence to be free from a monarchy so that we could live in a democracy.
So the Democrats have been frantically setting the table after realizing they put nothing on it, only to have the Nadler, New York Congressman, Judiciary Committee Chair Jerry Nadler bring the Democratic Party message back to its modus operandi of bad craziness.
I now call up the committee report for a resolution recommending that the House of Representatives find William Barr, Attorney General, U.S. Department of Justice, in contempt for refusal to comply with a subpoena duly issued by the Committee on the Judiciary.
The Attorney General actions are contemptuous and insulting to Congress, but we're simply the tools.
And he obstructed justice, as the Mueller report says it so. We are in danger.
The American people and Congress saw clearly that Barr was a part of the president's ongoing obstruction.
That's your leader, the commander-in-chief.
This is a deadly, serious moment. The rule of law and our basic institutions that have made our democracy the envy of the world are being tested.
Mr. President, Mr. Chairman, this is a lawless administration. And why is this important?
Bringing a vote of contempt against Attorney General William Barr in record time.
In fact, the chairman is moving to this contempt resolution at lightning speed. It has been less than 20 days since the chairman, Nadler, subpoenaed documents from the Justice Department. When the Oversight Committee held Attorney General Eric Holder in contempt, more than 250 days had passed between the subpoena and the committee's vote to hold him in contempt. More than 450 days passed between the committee's initial request to the Justice Department and the committee's contempt vote. Judiciary Democrats are moving more than 10 times faster than Oversight did with Holder.
Mr. Mueller's going to be here next week. Why are we doing it? You're going to get to ask the guy who wrote the whole darn document. We're all going to get asked him questions. Why don't you hold off on this contempt until at least the guy who wrote the thing spent 22 months and $35 million with a whole bunch of Democrat lawyers putting it together? Why don't you wait and ask him next week before we do this contempt resolution?
I'll answer, essentially because it would be useful to read the material before we have him in front of us.
225 days progressed from subpoena of Eric Holder to a contempt vote. This circus, 19 days. It's clear that this is just a game for the majority, and now that they have a bad hand, they're bluffing.
If the Democrats actually cared about fair and free elections and Russian election meddling, would they actually support big tech's obvious 2020 election interference of banning the platforms of Trump's base, or continue their shallow impeachment narrative, a narrative that threatens the stability of the United States and the real issues Americans face?
My good friend from Georgia just asked the operative question: how can we impeach if we don't get the documents? How can we impeach if we don't get the documents? Ladies and gentlemen, this hearing is not about the Attorney General. It's not about the Mueller report, 92% of which everyone in America has had the opportunity to read. It's not about the fact that even the portions that the American people haven't been able to read, the chairman's been able to go read had he chosen. This is all about impeaching the president. Now, why don't they just say it? Why don't they just jump to the impeachment proceedings like their liberal media overlords are telling them to do?
In fact, the Russians and other foreign powers hedging their bets are probably stunned and amused by the sheer tenacity by which the Democrats sunk their teeth into undermining the cohesion of the crumbling union of the United States.
First of all, Russia, as a state, has never interfered with the internal affairs of the United States, let alone its elections.
While the ominous origins of the need for the Mueller report, namely the Steele Dossier and the Obama administration's spying on of then-candidate Donald Trump, are what cry out for immediate prosecution.
Democrats are afraid of what the Attorney General will find when he completes his ongoing review of FISA abuses of the Justice Department, including how the Russia investigation began. Multiple news reports have suggested those conclusions could be explosive, could end careers, and could even lead to criminal prosecution. Rather than face that, the Democrats have resolved to neutralize Bill Barr by attacking him and the office and his integrity and his career.
Is that our Democratic colleagues are afraid. They're afraid that unlike former Attorney General Sessions, who had recused himself from anything related to the Mueller investigation, Bill Barr is going to dig into the origins of the bogus Russian collusion allegation itself. The Clinton campaign funding of the Steele Dossier was the actual collusion between the Russians and the political campaign. Is that something that's finally going to be looked into? That was the real political collusion with the Russians.
Sent investigator posing as an assistant to meet with the Trump aide in 2016. FBI sent someone in, pretending to be somebody else, to talk with George Papadopoulos, who was with the Trump campaign. You know what they call that? You know what they call that? It's called spying.
John Bowne reporting.